There are shows with psychics.
And there are shows with doctors.
But there's no show like The Psychic and the Doc.
Your practical paranormal power unleashed.
This show synthesizes the talents of world-class medium Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, psychic explorer,
and street smart spiritualist, behavioral psychologist, Dr. Pat Baccili. All subjects are on the table and no topic is taboo. Inspiration, insight,
action, and fun as Mark Anthony connects callers with loved ones in spirit,
in tandem with Dr. Pat's fresh, no-nonsense, street smart, intuitive insights. And she is hilarious.
Extraordinary problems
require extraordinary solutions, which may come from this side
or the other side. This is The Psychic
and the Doc, and it starts now. Welcome, everybody. I am Mark Anthony. I'm the Psychic, and my amazing, fantastic co-host, Dr. Pat Baccili, will be joining us again next week. So this week, though, we're in for a couple of treats. Instead of the Psychic and the Doc, tonight you have the Psychic and the Rock. And they're my co-host, Rocky Trainer. Hey, Rocky, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great this evening, and I'm really excited about the fact that we have Rick Warner on, because this is a subject I just love.
Yeah, this show is, no kidding, out of this world, and it in a lot of ways, because World UFO Day is July 2nd, which is Saturday. And back in 1947, on July 7th, was the Roswell incident. And I think pretty much everybody has heard of the Roswell incident. Yes. The official story from the United States Air Force was that it was a weather balloon that crashed near Roswell. But since that time, there have been many stories, rumors, legends, all types of amazing information coming out of that. But and in the decades since, the debate over unidentified flying objects, which are now referred to as unidentified aerial phenomenon. They've been called flying saucers. I mean, we've heard all types of things about potential visitors from another world. Hollywood and every other movie studio in the world has certainly made all types of stories about them. We've seen Independence Day, E.T., The Day the Earth Stood Still, and a lot of people in scientific circles. Mork and Mindy, yeah. A lot of people, Alf, my favorite Martian, Third Rock from the Sun had to be the best, okay? Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of times this was looked at as fringe and kooky. But in the last year, the United States government and other countries declassified information about UFOs.
Well,
go ahead, Rocky.
I wanted to share, when I was 15 years old, I was out on a date, and my dad worked in the space industry, and this fella and I were going to join some friends on a South Beach just past the tracking station. And as we were heading
And where was this?
This was near Kennedy Space Center. It was
okay.
Kennedy Space Center. And we were heading south towards the Sebastian Beach, and we spotted something over the ocean. And it was like this magnificent light. And I said, wow, is that a jet? It's flying so close to the ocean, but how far? And he's slowed down the car and he goes, oh, it looks like a flying saucer. We both laughed. And then he said, no, really, look at it. And this beam of light that looked like a saucer, but looked like a plane, we weren't sure what it was, came down close. And then he stopped the car and we looked, and I said, I'm really scared. And then all of a sudden, the object went straight out over the horizon and disappeared quickly. We were so shook up. He turned the car around. He said, let's go back to your house and talk to your dad about it. And that's what we did. And I know my dad was very much interested. And then he told us about Roswell and all these type of things. So it was quite interesting, and what an experience. And I've never forgotten that experience.
Wow, that's incredible. And tonight we have an amazing guest, Rick Warner. And Rick Warner is the executive director and the director of investigations for ERC, Extraterrestrial Research Center. Over the past several years, in addition to becoming a certified UFO field investigator through MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, Mr. Warner is also a UFO researcher and is the U.S. ambassador to the Italian UFO Federation, FUI. I think I need to say that right. The Italian Federation of UFOs. He's also the lead investigator, tech manager, and director of client relations for Phantom Detectives, a paranormal investigation group. And disclaimer, I am affiliated with Phantom Detectives, and they're just an amazing group of paranormal investigators and researchers. Rick Warner has appeared on several radio shows and podcasts, as well as the TV show docudrama series episode called Unstoppable. And on that light note, we can't stop this. Rick Warner, thanks for joining us here on The Psychic in the Doc.
Hey, thanks for having me on board. I really appreciate it.
Okay. How does somebody get involved in becoming a UFO investigator? I mean, like, was somebody in your family abducted, watch X-Files or Star Trek fan? I mean, how do you get involved in UFO investigation?
Well, it kind of all started out when I was a kid. And I remember I was with my mom and her friend at the time. This was actually in Southern California. And we were traveling by the freeway, and they were kind of both talking to each other and not, the driver really shouldn't be engaged in conversation with the head turned, and rather should have the eyes on the road at all times. But anyway, they were talking back and forth, and I'm in the back seat, and I see what appears to be some type of extraterrestrial craft that kind of quickly hovers over. And it's just like real quick. It just kind of like went right over the car, and then it took off in a blink of an eye. It was just gone at an incredible speed. And it happened so fast, and they didn't see a thing because they were so focused on their conversation and looking at each other. And I remember, I had asked them if they saw anything. They said they weren't even looking at it. So they said they didn't see anything. But I was very reluctant to talk to anybody about it in school, and fear of some kind of ridicule.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like when, I remember growing up in school when somebody would, when you would say, talk about, man going to the moon, you would get laughed at, you'd be ridiculed, like, yeah, right, you must be crazy, right? And then look what's happened since then. So anyhow, I've always had an interest in, the UFO subject matter, or, UAP, if you want to call it that. So anything extraterrestrial. And I'm watching this TV show one day, and they had these field investigators. It was a show where they go out and investigate people that claim to have seen something extraterrestrial in nature. And they started doing this investigation, and I see their hats they're wearing, and it says MUFON on there. So I'm like, MUFON, what's that? So, I go ahead and look it up, find the website, and it says, okay, MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, to where, if someone wanted to be, because everybody's volunteers, no one gets paid. I think maybe there might be a couple secretaries that work for the company that get paid, but other than that, it's the whole organization's all based on volunteers. And what I did was I reached out to the state director for the state of Delaware, and let them know this is what I want to do. I joined a local chapter, and in the meantime, I paid the money, because you have to pay the money and get the study manual to study. So I went through that, and I started reading all the stuff. And then MUFON has like a MUFON, they call it MUFON University, where there's a lot of courses you could take to earn certificates. So I went through all that, studied, and passed my course. And the next thing you know, I started receiving cases to go out and investigate.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
That is amazing. And, what's fascinating is the way you were describing your encounter, what you saw sound very similar to what Rocky saw. The object in the sky that just darts away and moves at such an incredibly fast speed. And so many of the people that I've talked to and interviewed that have been involved with seeing UFOs describe a similar occurrence. And we're coming up on a break, but we're going to go to break. But when we come back, I want to talk about people that you have interviewed who claim to have been abducted. And I've interviewed two people, Calvin Parker and Nancy Tremaine, and I'm sure you know who they are, they are so credible in their accounts of being abducted. I mean, there's just no really other way to describe this. So I want to also invite the listeners, feel free to call in to ask Rick questions. 1-800-930-2819. 1-800-930-2819. This is the Transformation Network, and this episode is out of this world because we have a special guest tonight, Rick Warner. He is a UFO investigator, and we'll be right back after the break.
Stay. Greetings all. Hey, I'm Rocky Trainer, and this is the Psychic in the Dot, and Dr. Pat Baccili will be back with us next week. But right now, we are on air with a very interesting person who is Rick Warner. And Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Rick, I know that you worked or do work with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And in the course of your research with MUFON, have you ever had the opportunity to interview somebody who's been abducted or claims to have been abducted by aliens from a UFO?
Yes, actually I have. Matter of fact, the guy that I interviewed, I did a phone interview with, this was actually the same person that I went with a team of paranormal investigators, and we conducted an investigation there based on paranormal activity that he picked up on his video cameras. So yeah, it was very interesting to talk to him and find out about his case.
Could you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah, what happened?
Yes. So basically what happened, so when I talked to him on the phone, he actually had sent some pictures to me of skin markings that he had. And many times people that claim that they're, going to use the term abductee or also experiencer, sometimes some of these people will have certain markings on their body, it could be like triangular shaped or, rows of red dots on their body. Sometimes there could be scoops of skin missing or some type of bruising and burns and that sort of thing. So it's important to try to find out, if that person maybe had some kind of skin disorder of some sort, or maybe went to a dermatologist, had it checked out. So yeah, it was kind of cool to look at all these pictures that were sent to me regarding that.
But,
go ahead.
You're doing an objective analysis by ruling out what factors that it could be to see if it verifies what this person is saying is, I was abducted, and since that time, I have these scars. Did they come up with or present anything else?
Yes. Well, actually, so what was told to me was that, many years ago, he said it happened several times. And one of the time when he was sleeping in his bed and, strange things were happening, and he felt, he saw that there were some extraterrestrial beings. And then he felt the missing time of it was like waking up, and then all of a sudden several hours had gone by, which seems to happen with a lot of people that claim to be an experiencer. And so, it was very interesting that, that had happened. But a lot of cases where people claim that they're, that have been abducted and stuff like that. Of course, you want to try to figure out if, that it's not some kind of mental illness or something maybe
Right.
like somebody has a mental disorder maybe that could be causing them to hallucinate or see things that really aren't there.
So
That's good.
And I appreciate that, because to verify the legitimacy of aliens maybe among us or visiting us, you really have to go through all of those phases of identifying if it's real or not real. And as you said, if someone has a mental disorder. Do you think, because I love the movie Men in Black, do you feel that they are among us and walking like down the street and are blending in?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there are experts that feel that there are hybrid extraterrestrial beings that are walking on the planet that are actually part alien and part human.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why, too. Some people like, well, why are these people getting abducted and that sort of thing? And I think that there's a few reasons. One is, of course, for doing testing and stuff like that, and they're also interested in our species. But I do believe that they are extracting DNA for the purpose of mixing it in with their own species to create a hybrid.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I want to go to the phones. Jacob, I understand we have, is it Denise from Florida on the line?
Denise from Florida calling in. Hi there,
All
Denise.
right. Hi, Denise. Welcome to the Psychic in the Dock. Oh, Denise, please turn your speakers off.
Yes.
For all the callers, always turn your speakers off, because what happens is it creates a feedback loop and a lot of distortion. So turn your speakers off and just talk to us with your phone.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can now. Okay, Denise, what's your question for Rick Warner?
Okay, my question for whoever can answer it. Hello, Rocky. Hello, Rick. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Can't we ask the spirits, like if I'm talking to my spirit, couldn't I ask them and say, are there extraterrestrials here on Earth with us right now, or where are they coming from?
Let me take that one.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Denise, that's a fascinating question. Rick is a researcher that works with people who have had direct contact. So his research is empirical. Now, and Rocky has seen this happen because I have done readings for people who claim to be abducted, and the information that comes through is startling. I've also had the opportunity to interview Calvin Parker and Nancy Tremaine, who are two of the most credible abductees on record, and I've also conducted reading for them. The long story short, what the other side, what the spirit realm is telling us is that we are one of a multitude of intelligent species in the universe, and that they are in fact contacting us. So yes, that is what has been presented to me in spirit communication sessions. Rocky or Rick, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I want to know, Rick, do you think you've ever been in the presence of an alien?
Well, that's a good question. Personally, myself, no, I don't feel I have, other than not really other than what, seeing the, spacecraft, what I thought was alien spacecraft. And, to me, if that was what it really was, and that's what I think that it was, that would have been, some type of extraterrestrial being that was operating that craft. But I have personally not seen any extraterrestrial beings by myself, up close and personal, or anything like that.
Do you think people on Earth are ready to actually engage with aliens?
I do. I mean, here's the deal. So, you're gonna get the people that are actually believers. They believe in the paranormal. They believe in extraterrestrial events. They believe that that there's alien spacecraft and aliens that are taking a look at our planet and trying to make contact. And then you're going to have the people that are just very skeptical. They don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in ghosts. They don't believe in extraterrestrials. Some of these people might not even believe in God, because they may say, well, you know what? I haven't seen him, so therefore maybe it doesn't exist.
Right.
But what you have to look at the evidence, because 80% of what people see and what's out there, truthfully, a lot of that can be explained to man-made objects or some type of natural phenomenon. It could be a star, could be a planet, that sort of thing. So out of that 80%, I mean, that still leaves 20% of what can't be explained. There's no explanation for it. It's not a man-made craft. It's not a natural phenomenon, not a star, not a planet, that sort of thing. So, and then it's not just what's seen throughout the United States, but it's throughout the whole world. There's a lot of countries that have sightings, not just in the United States. And a lot of times, some of those cases we don't really hear about. And I should mention that even though MUFON is an international organization, most of the bulk of their cases come from the United States, and only a small amount come from other countries. And sometimes they don't even report to MUFON at all. There might be one case. But I do want to mention quickly too that even though I was trained through MUFON as a certified field investigator, I don't conduct any cases for MUFON other than my own organization, which is Extraterrestrial Research Center.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Mark mentioned that you were involved with the Italian government with UFOs. Have they had sightings that got this group going?
Yes, actually they have. And it's actually, so FUI, or the Italian UFO Federation, so they claim to be the largest UFO investigative agency for the country of Italy. And I got invited to be a part of the organization, which is kind of a little bit difficult. I submitted a few articles and things like that to them for publication, but I have to type everything out. Once I have everything typed out in English, I have to take it to Google Translate and translate it to Italian, and then give it to them. As a matter of fact, the guy that runs the organization, that's how we're able to communicate. We use Google Translate to talk to each other.
Thank you, Google. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I
Google.
know. That's
I do it too. Yeah.
But I also understand that the Roswell incident isn't the only purported crash of a UFO. I understand there was one reported in the United Kingdom, and I believe one in Siberia and in Russia as well. Do you have any knowledge of that? Briefly, because we're coming up on a break.
Nothing really direct on that. I mean, there's so many different cases. I mean, it's kind of like really hard to keep up with things. But I will say this, that people that now think because of having these we just had this government hearing thing. I wouldn't say it's a hearing, but when they have the government come on and talk about, maybe it is what you call a hearing, I'm not sure what the right term is, but they were having all these government people talk about, extraterrestrial type things. And I thought that was kind of like a really big thing. But what a lot of people don't know is that, the CIA, the FBI, the DOD, they were, conducting research and conducting an investigation, even back during, Clinton's reign as being president. And they were going through and, conducting investigations and that sort of thing. But, the government sometimes is very good about trying to brush things under the rug,
Right.
and hide the truth. And I think a lot of that is because they don't want, stimulate the whole paranormal thing and have people get all crazy about stuff.
Well, hold
And-
that
and-
thought. That's a good place for us to take a break. Jacob,
Yes, sir.
we're going to be back after the half hour. And I understand we have Derek from Ontario on the phone. And Derek will be taking your call right after the break. I'm Mark Anthony. You're listening to The Psychic and the Doc. Ooh, that music really sets the mood for our World UFO Day show here on The Psychic and the Doc. I'm with Rocky Trainer, my co-host tonight, and we are on air with Rick Warner. And before I ask Rick the next question, I understand that we have a caller, Derek from Ontario, on the line. Jacob, let's talk to Derek.
Alrighty, Derek, you are connected now with Mark, Rick, and Rocky.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Rocky.
Hey,
Hi.
Derek, how you doing?
Hello.
Welcome.
Doing
what
well.
Can we do for you?
Doing
Yeah,
well. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you have, Derek?
So I wanted to come back to something Rick said a few minutes ago about the physical evidence on people who have been abducted, and talked about some skin differences and everything. I'm curious about this lapse in perception of time, though. So do people describe this as being similar to going to sleep and then waking up later? Or do you think the other beings have some way of manipulating consciousness so that they don't remember it?
Great
That's
question.
a great question. Yeah, I was gonna say. Okay, so I'll just tell you what I think. From it's probably a little bit different than maybe what Mark might think, being a psychic and everything. But I'm sure that they're able to do something to maybe where you might forget something, or you might not know what exactly happened to you. So maybe like you're driving through the country road and you're in your truck, and then all of a sudden it's just like, it was like 12 o'clock when you left the house. And then you look at your watch and go, wait a minute, how did it get to be 3 o'clock? I was only going to drive down to the 7-Eleven to get some milk or something. And now it's like 3 hours later, and they're trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
So I think definitely they can, do something to, maybe have you not really realize where you're at and what has happened, and also manipulate things with your mind. And it's believed that these extraterrestrial beings don't really, talk to people by talking, but actually through, I guess you would call it telepathy. Through the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, do you have a follow-up?
That's great. Oh, I'd be curious in your take, Mark, but only because Rick set you up for that.
Well, I tend to agree with Rick, because I remember in one of the readings that I did for this gentleman, his grandmother's spirit came by and began to talk to him about the night that time itself stood still. Now, I had no idea he was an abductee. I was doing a reading for him, and then I said, he's talking about the Greys. And this guy started getting like, oh my God. And he explained to me that he felt that he'd been abducted on a number of occasions, and there was always like this warp in time. So it appears, based on the contact that I've had, that I agree with Rick. They're definitely able to do like impose an amnesia, or they're able to do something telepathically, but it's also hypothetically possible that they could be affecting the time-space continuum. And the reason, and I'm sorry if I'm going off on this, but the reason that we feel that way is because we've had other UFO experts, and I believe Rick's aware of this too, that a UFO is not a tin can flying through space for thousands of years to get here, but they've managed to perfect the Albuquerque effect, which is a fold in space-time. So if you think about it, think of this piece of paper as space, and instead of traversing from one point to the other, they're
bend
able
time.
to generate, they bend time to where they can do an interdimensional quantum leap, if you will, from one coordinate to the next without violating Einstein's theory of relativity, that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. So I hope I explained that correctly, Rick.
Mhm.
You did. That was a very intelligent answer.
Derek, I mean, gosh, we could have you on all night. You got great questions. So
That is.
I'm having a text from people who work at Kennedy Space Center that are in a public place, and they would love to revisit this again. And they're so glad that you're on tonight, Rick. So I just wanted to let you know that. That's all
That's
the bloom
fantastic.
that's going on my
yeah,
phone.
cool. Well, I mean, this is something that affects humanity. And it's easy to say, oh, well, yeah, there's nothing out there. But then look at the stars at night. I mean, statistically, if it's only 0.00001% possibility that there's other planets with life, that's still millions of planets just in our galaxy alone.
That's
and
right.
Then, yeah, so it is quite mind-boggling. Derek, I'm going to do you one more. I'm going to indulge you. Do you have another question?
Of course.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry.
Derek,
I thought you had one for me.
I said, Derek, no. All right. Do you have another question? I'll do. Remember John Lithgow on Third Rock from the Sun? I remember a baby walked in and the aliens are like, what does this baby want? He goes, I'll find out. What do you want? And I'm laughing. So it was like, so, Derek, what do you want?
It was a great show. That's all I had prepared. So thank you so much for your time.
Derek,
thanks for
thank
coming
you
on.
so much for calling in. Rick, I got a question. I know that you work with a number of organizations, and there is one that the acronym is AEDC. Can you tell us what AEDC means and what it is?
Yes, so the AEDC, that stands for the Alliance of Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, and they are a nonprofit organization. And I know, as crazy as this may sound to some people, because this organization, a matter of fact, they probably have, I'm told something like 500,000 people that are all behind this organization and backing all this. And what they are trying to do is they're looking for a host country to host an embassy that'll be strictly for extraterrestrial beings. And they put out this amazing brochure that shows, I mean, this thing looked like a book. It had these beautiful pictures of, what some guy who's probably a professional guy who does illustrations and drafting. And these are what the plans look like of this amazing structure. And they're saying that, we're looking for host countries and, a country that would host this. And that it's going to bring in a lot of tourism, which I could see that because people think, you know what, let's go to this country because they have extraterrestrials at the embassy. So,
Wow.
And that's what they're trying to do. And they actually have, I'm told, a budget of $150 million currently right now to be able to use this expense to to build this structure and all that. And a lot of it is, they're trying to get approval and get it go through the government. And I guess it's the United Nations and that sort of thing to get approval to have an embassy for extraterrestrials.
Do you believe that if something is established like that, do you believe that the extraterrestrial would actually engage us?
I definitely think that they would. I mean, because if you look at how there's been a lot more stuff happening than ever before, more sightings and, more people that have claimed to be experiencers or abductees, if you want to call it that. And, it's just, there's been too many things that have happened for many years over a long period of time. And then if you want to go back to, here's an example. Like I had a guy who sent me some pictures of some ancient alien artifacts that came from the caves in Mexico. And I thought this guy must be some kind of archaeologist, but it turned out that he wasn't. And he actually purchased these artifacts and he had them carbon tested. One was a university that was in Italy, and then there was this other university, I believe it was Florida, and they had all these carbon tested to prove that, they were very, very old. But the Mexican government just looks at them like it's modern art because they don't really have a place to classify it. So if somebody sends you pictures, you might think, okay, you know what? Maybe he just got them from somebody else. He got them off the internet. But then he showed me video footage of in his house, he had these alien artifacts of these really crazy things. They were like carvings. It would show, like, one had, they're like these tablets, and it would have the carving of Saturn, because you could see the ring of Saturn and have all these other little planets. And it had the same, the Eye of Horus and these inscriptions on it. And some of these artifacts, he would put this special blue light. I guess it's the same light that's used for like reptiles and that kind of thing.
Right.
And he would, go in the dark and turn it off. And I've seen the videos of it. And these things would like just glow. And sometimes what would glow, you'd see this like really weird, what I call like some kind of alien writing or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, well, it looks like totally different than what it was when the light wasn't on. It's just crazy stuff like that. And when you see it in someone's house, in their living room and their little glass cabinets, it's amazing. This guy has so much stuff. I guess he threw down like $150,000 and bought a bunch of stuff. And since it's, he wanted to dig out there, but it's illegal to do it. He had to get some special permission from the Mexican government. And he has so much of this stuff. He has some of this stuff hidden and buried in places because he doesn't want this stuff getting into the wrong hands.
I wonder if vibrationally there is something connected to these artifacts or these pieces that tones, like as Steven Spielberg did in I guess it was E.T. About the sounds and tones.
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what?
So,
I definitely believe that there could be some attachment to these, because if you think of like, how spirits are able to attach themselves to objects like dolls, like somebody might have a doll that they picked up at a thrift store. And all of a sudden, like one night, they see the thing move, or, maybe, the head turns or some weird thing like that. And so there have been objects even that have been investigated in the paranormal field to pick up like high EMF readings and that sort of thing. So if you're getting that off of somebody's like, maybe their glass cabinet, and there's nothing electrical there, or it's a coffee table, and you're getting like high readings, or you're picking something off a thermal camera, you're like, wow, there's must be some kind of spirit attached to this object.
well, I know that Mark calls it residual energy because something has attached itself, but doesn't stay there. And Mark can explain that much better. But being on research projects and expeditions with Mark, and I've only been on several, and he's been doing this all his life. It has been an amazing experience to see when Mark explains the residual energy and psychometry of things that have attached something. Like if someone inherits a ring, that energy is in there, but not the entity itself. Mark, maybe you can expound on that.
Well, matter retains vibration. And, I want to digress a little bit. Paul McCartney just turned 80 years old. And it's cool because he just headlined at a major rock festival in Scotland. But about a year ago, the media was making fun of McCartney because he said that, his friend George Harrison, who was the lead guitarist for the Beatles, and George liked gardening, and George gave him this tree, which McCartney planted in his front yard. And he said that every time he goes near this tree, he feels George around him. And the media said, Paul McCartney thinks George Harrison is in a tree in his front yard. And it's like, it really ticked me off because what he was experiencing was a frequency beacon, also psychometry. a very dear friend. I mean, who could relate to being a Beatle other than the Beatles? Okay. I mean, they were as big, if not bigger than Elvis Presley. George loved gardening, and out of love gave his good friend a tree, and he planted this tree. And a frequency beacon is when, if you're thinking about a person who has passed, you're emitting an electromagnetic impulse from your brain. Spirits, being pure electromagnetic energy, pick up on that, it draws them to you. And it works two ways. Spirits can send an EM impulse to you, and you'll pick up on it. And so I think what McCartney described beautifully was a frequency beacon. And so I wanted to give an example that a lot of people can relate to, because there's many people that feel that all of a sudden I smell my mother's perfume, and you know, she died 10 years ago and there was no perfume bottle or anything around. And that too is a frequency beacon. So it happens. Yeah. And it happens the same in objects, because everything on a subatomic level has a vibration, a different frequency. And so if you handle an object, let's say I'm handling this pen, well, it's going to pick up my vibration so that somebody else who handles it, particularly somebody else who's psychically sensitive, can start picking up things about me based on the vibration from that. And that's what's known as psychometry. And the reason that I'm talking about this, because I believe that this ties into what you're talking about too, Rick, when it comes to UFOs. I mean, one of the first things you said tonight was about frequency. I mean, we're dealing with whoever they are, whatever they are a lot more technologically advanced than we are.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And now let me ask you this. Why do you think that they have contacted us? Or do you think that they're reluctant to contact us? What's your take on
I don't really
that?
think they're reluctant at all. Just the fact that they keep appearing to so many different people. And then you have the people that claim to be an abductee, the experiences that they have. I think that they are very interested in this planet as well as our species. I don't really know, what their whole intention is, as far as, I don't believe that they mean any harm to our planet or the people on this earth. I don't think that they do, because I think with their technology, if they really, with their high technology, if they wanted to do something, they would probably have some kind of ordinance that would just blow the stuff that we have out of the water.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they meant us harm, wouldn't they have done it already?
Exactly.
I think it was, Elon Musk, and I like Elon Musk. I know he's got a lot of flack in the news, and I don't want to get into his politics, but the man is a genius, all right? And he said something, and Stephen Hawking said something along these lines too, is that we need to be careful trying, we're always sending signals and probes out there. Here we are, is like, do we really want to do that? I mean, we're assuming we're going to be attracting a sophisticated, peace love, the Vulcans. Okay, we think we're going to get the Vulcans. Well, we may end up with the Klingons or the Borg or God knows what, But it's interesting when you hear people like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking say, maybe we shouldn't be in such a big rush to let people know we're here. But I think you're right, Rick. They already know we're here. And if they meant us harm, they would have done it to us already.
Exactly. And you know what I think too? I mean, when you hear people talk, a lot of times you hear about the Greys or the reptilians or that sort of thing. I mean, there's some experts out there that say that there's a lot more species than just that, than just a few of them, which kind of makes sense because, it's like, if you think of like, they'll be like saying, okay, well, there's only one nationality, but there's several nationalities here on this planet.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But when you think of like, what's out there, I mean, when people are down on Earth and in certain places in the world, you could see the Milky Way galaxy and you go, oh, wow, look at, there's the Milky Way galaxy, not even realizing that we're sitting in that galaxy, which is and I can't remember from tip to tip, it's like billions and bazillions of miles apart. So if you imagine that there's galaxies that haven't even been yet to discover, the planets that haven't been discovered yet, I mean, it's fair to say that you know, there would have to be other types of species out there. You know, I just think that there is probably quite a few of them.
Oh, I mean, that's just logical. I mean, it's so funny in science fiction. Every time Earth contacts humans, I mean, aliens, they always speak English. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
take me to your leader. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be the wisest course of action, but
especially now.
Are you sure you want to meet our leader? Yeah, you're something like that. Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be somebody else who want to meet. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you rather meet Paul McCartney or Mick Jagger? No,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'll try to raise Elvis from the dead.
But I think though that this is such a huge field. Rick, where do you see the interest and the study of UFOs going? What do you see as the future in this field?
What I see is more and more people being open to the subject matter. But at the same time, I think that I see a lot more people being open to the subject. I mean, because truthfully, I mean, even when I got in with MUFON in the beginning, you know, I thought, you know, do I really want to do this? Because I'm thinking that I'm going to run into all these people that think, you know, this guy must be way out there. You know, he's crazy because he believes in extraterrestrials and that kind of thing. But that wasn't the case at all. It actually amazed me how many people that I have ran into that really feel and believe that there's something out there. And some of these things are based on their experiences. So, and then when you have people that are experts and stuff, people that are very credible witnesses, that were some type of like airline pilot or a single plane pilot or somebody in a helicopter or the military or even a NASA astronaut. Matter of fact, even the astronauts with NASA and stuff that would see stuff, a lot of that stuff, you know, got washed out by NASA because they didn't, you know, they would see things and then all of a sudden it's gone. You know, they got rid of it.
Edgar Mitchell. Yeah, Edgar Mitchell founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, and he was a UFOologist, aside from being an astronaut and a physicist. And supposedly a number of astronauts, I mean, there's rumors that Buzz Aldrin, they said they saw something when they were on the moon. But like you said, you know, NASA always clamped down on it. That always frustrates me. You know, it's always like in science fiction movies. It's like, you know, you're about to find out and then the government comes in and clamps down on it.
Why? Yeah, it's like, don't talk. They tell you, don't say anything to anybody. Keep it hush hush.
And they think it's going to cause worldwide panic. Well, maybe that's exactly what this planet needs, is to be shaken up a bit. I mean, look at what's going on. I mean, Russia started an unnecessary, unprovoked war against Ukraine. There's slaughter going on in Yemen, in Somalia. I mean, all over the world, human conflict. And I always thought that aliens would look at us and say, why do we want to get involved with them? It's an incredibly warlike species. And whatever technology we give them, they're going to weaponize. I mean, it's
exactly.
Maybe they are reluctant to get in touch with us, or maybe they look at us with about as much interest as we look at a anthill.
What if they said, we don't need to destroy the planet because they could do that fine on their own?
Yeah, and then we'll just come in and repopulate it. I mean,
exactly.
There's go ahead, Rocky.
I'm being hopeful that that's not the case.
Well, I hope you're right
we all
too.
Come together. I mean, you think about all the different races. What if aliens from all different places put people of different races and sizes and shapes on this earth to see how they would all get along, and we're the experiment? I read something once, some science fiction, and I thought, what a concept that is.
Remember the quote, why can't we all just get along? I'm sorry, I just had to say that. I had to throw that in there.
You know, it's very fascinating when you talk to, I've talked to a number of astronauts. We only got a minute, and they've all said that Earth is so alive And they realize, looking at it, that this is the only place we have to live. And we're coming up on the end of the show. So Rick, I want to thank you. How do people get hold of you if they want to find out more about you?
Okay, so if you want to get a hold of me, you can visit my website called ERC, which stands for Extraterrestrial Research Center, that could be found at www.ERC2Explore.com. So www.ERC2Explore.com. And from there, there's a lot of resources there to learn about the subject of ufology. And there's some great videos there. If you have a case that you want to submit, a sighting, you could do that as well.
Rick, thank you so much for being on the show. Rocky, thank you for standing in tonight. And everybody, I will be back next week with Dr. Pat. This is the Psychic in the Doc. We're here every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and all times in between and either side of that worldwide. Thank you, and keep watching the sky.
Many blessings.
Yes, sir.
Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning into the Psychic in the Doc with Mark Anthony and me, Dr. Pat Baccili, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Hey, look, come back next week so we can explore with you more of life's many challenges and learn from fascinating guests. And you know what? Even Mark and me. We'll connect you and discover insights from people in this life and from the afterlife. Extraordinary problems? Yeah, they do. They require extraordinary solutions. But step into the world of possibilities with us on the Psychic and the Doc. That's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. That's TransformationTalkRadio.com. And don't forget, we're also live face-to-face on Facebook.com, Transformation Talk Radio.